raised my nephew as my own son because my sister didn't want him. Now her daughter is jealous of her brother because they're turbo poor. Ugh. In a small, modest house, nestled in a quiet suburb of New Jersey, I, Alicia, found myself sitting on the worn-out couch. The years had passed since that fateful day I first made the decision to raise my nephew as my own. My sister Sarah had made it clear from the start that she didn't want him. The rejection wasn't just emotional, it was physical. She left him at my doorstep, an infant wrapped in a threadbare blanket with nothing but a note that said, "You take care of him, I can't." Sarah had always been unpredictable, wild, and selfish. It wasn't just her lack of maternal instinct that shocked me. It was the way she viewed responsibility as a burden, something to escape. I had my own life, my own struggles. But the sight of my nephew Caleb, those big innocent eyes, filled with such confusion and fear, broke my heart. He wasn't just my nephew anymore. He was my son. I swore to raise him as if he were my own blood. The years passed by. Caleb grew from a fragile infant to a bright-eyed child with a heart as big as the world itself. He was everything I had ever wanted, and I poured every ounce of love into him. Yet the memories of Sarah haunted me. She didn't want him, but she couldn't stay away for long. She'd pop in every now and then, usually with empty promises of being a better sister, a better mother, but I never once considered turning Caleb away. He was a piece of my soul, and as I watched him grow, I realized how much I had sacrificed for him. My dreams, my career, took a backseat. I was always there for him. When he had nightmares, I was the one who soothed him. When he got his first school report, I proudly framed it. But Sarah's presence was always a shadow over our little family. She'd drop in for a visit only to criticize my choices, or worse, accuse me of trying to take Caleb away from her. Years later, as Caleb entered his teenage years, Sarah came back into my life with a surprising twist. She had a daughter, Emma. The first time I laid eyes on her, I knew something was wrong. She had that same wild look in her eyes that Sarah always had. But Emma was different. She was quieter, more reserved, and there was a bitterness in her gaze when she looked at Caleb. At first I didn't understand. Emma seemed to hate Caleb, and I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't until much later that I realized the root of her jealousy. Emma was used to being the center of attention in her mother's life, but Caleb was always the one who had her love, her attention, and in Emma's eyes, that wasn't fair. Emma resented her brother for something he had no control over. We were struggling. I had done everything I could to keep us afloat, but life in New Jersey wasn't easy. Bills piled up, and sometimes it felt like the world was closing in on us. Caleb and I would stretch every dollar, while Sarah lived in her own world of selfishness. Her daughter, Emma, had no understanding of the sacrifices I made every day. She wore clothes that were too tight, but she never once complained. She would quietly watch Caleb get the attention he deserved, while she was ignored. One evening, after a particularly heated argument with Sarah over Caleb's education, I found Emma standing by the window, staring out into the night. Her eyes were cold, angry. She spoke softly, almost to herself. "Why does Caleb get everything? He's not even yours. He's just a reminder of how you've taken my mother from me." Her words cut deep, more deeply than I could have imagined. She was angry. She was jealous. Not just of Caleb's place in my heart, but of the love I'd given him, the love I'd never been able to give her. That night, I stayed up late, reflecting on everything that had happened. I thought about the sacrifices I'd made, the dreams I'd put on hold for Caleb, and how I'd pushed Emma away without even realizing it. She didn't want to be in my shadow, but it wasn't her fault, just like it wasn't Caleb's. Both children were victims of circumstances, and as much as I wanted to blame Sarah, I had to see things through their eyes. The next morning, I sat down with both Caleb and Emma. I could see the hurt in their eyes. I spoke from my heart, telling them the truth about my love for them both, how much they meant to me, and how they would always be my children, no matter the circumstances. "Caleb, you've always been my son in every way that matters. But Emma, I need you to know that I see you too. I know you feel like you're in Caleb's shadow, but you're not. You're my daughter, and I love you just as much as I love him." There was silence. Emma's face softened, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability in her eyes. Caleb, too, looked at her differently, understanding her pain. "Closed case," Emma said, and dropped her hands to her sides. The years went by. Life didn't get easier, but it did get better. Caleb went on to college, his dreams shining brightly ahead of him. Emma, slowly but surely, found her place in our family. She learned to trust, and slowly, she began to see me as her mother, too. Sarah, on the other hand, faded away into the background. She never fully came to terms with the life she had abandoned, but I no longer cared. Caleb and Emma were my family, and in the end, Love was all that mattered. In that little house in New Jersey, with Caleb and Emma by my side, I learned the true meaning of family. It wasn't about blood. It wasn't about who was there in the beginning or who had the most to give. It was about being there when it mattered most. About love overcoming jealousy and anger. About fighting for your children, even when they weren't your own.